what do I actually want? And what does success mean to me? Are two questions that I've been considering a lot recently. And I think they're really important questions to think through, because if you don't think through them, what you end up doing, what I ended up doing, was defining my success based on how society defines success. So for me, that was how much money and how much status I have. And I don't think those are necessarily horrible motivators. Like, I think money can be a good motivator to get you off the ground, right? And money can certainly bring you a lot of happiness in certain situations. Like when I started working a salaried job and I bought my first car, that made me feel really good. But the thing about money and the thing about status and the thing about how society is going to define your success is that ultimately those things are fleeting. And you're going to reach a certain point where that's not going to really move the needle in terms of what's going to actually bring you contentment. And that's why I think it's important to define your success. And the reason I've been thinking a lot through this recently is that I'm reading this book, or actually I'm rereading this book called Inner Excellence. And I'm rereading it because the first time I ran it, I kind of speed ran the book. I kind of just wanted to get to the end of it, which is really just a bad way to read a self-improvement book. But I was hanging out with my buddy like 2 weeks ago, and we decided that we would both read the book. He's never read it before. I'm going to reread it. And at the end of each week, we're going to talk about the chapter. And then this time, instead of just reading it, we're both going to reflect on it, but at the same time, we're also going to go through these follow-up questions and activities, and I'll do that at the end of this video. And I think I'm not going to commit to making any more than just this video. This feels a little vulnerable. It feels a little intense for me to do, but I think ultimately the mission behind my channel has always been to make videos that inspire other people and motivate other people. So I think this falls in, and hopefully it's useful to you. So this first chapter is all about how you define success. And I wanted to start by reading a quote by Coach K, who was the head coach of Duke basketball for a really long time, and he won 5 national championships with Duke. And I think this statement sort of really shows the meat and potatoes of this chapter. So I just wanted to read it. It goes, if we're constantly looking at our win-loss record to determine whether we are doing well, we're not looking at the right barometer. If we're always striving to achieve a success that is defined by someone else, I think you'll always be frustrated. There will never be enough championships, never enough wins. And when you finally attain them, if you're lucky enough to do so, they'll only be numbers. Somebody will say you were great or successful, but ultimately, you'll know it's an empty success. The only way to get around such an unhappy ending is to continually define your own success. Your definition of success should have more depth than the equivalent of winning a national championship. It should be whatever passion moves you deep in your heart. I really like this idea of continually defining your own success, because ultimately, when you define your success by things that are out of your control, it's going to leave you feeling dissatisfied, even if you achieve that thing, I think. Because you don't actually get to control it. You get to control the inputs and you get to sort of control the result, but you don't actually get to control if you're going to make a certain amount of money, or if you're going to post a video that's going to get 1 million views versus 100,000 views versus whatever your success is. And I think that's a trap that I fell into for a really long time. And I think it's one that continually defining your own success can sort of get you out of. Because I think ultimately what we should pursue and what we should focus on is pursuing a better version of ourselves. And maybe that seems cliche, and maybe that seems like, how are you ever really going to feel happy about that? Because then you just have to get to the next level of yourself. But I think that's the only thing that's truly going to bring you happiness, is continually pursuing you and pursuing something bigger than you. And I think that's sort of a hard thing to really chase after, because again, we're so wired to be in competition with each other and to do better than other people. But I think it's something that you can work towards and get better at. And ultimately, if you can pursue something that you define, that you get to just say, I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to get a little bit better. I'm going to hit that workout a little bit harder. I'm going to be more intentional about the thing that I'm creating, the thing that I'm building. I'm going to just get a little bit better today. And if that's your success, if you can actually in your head wrap around the fact that that will bring you more happiness, that you will ultimately be more satisfied in that thing. And I also just wanted to go through sort of like the key points of chapter 1, just so I don't get too off point. I feel like I kind of got a little off point there and I kind of lost my train of thought. So I'm going to come back to that. And then at the end, again, I'll go through those follow-up questions and activities and how I'm sort of applying them to my life. So the first key point is that Western culture is obsessed with external symbols of success, constantly pushing us to have more and be more, like a treadmill that never stops. This slowly replaces our pursuit of meaningful relationships and personal growth with temporary, superficial rewards. I think this idea of a treadmill that never stops is incredibly accurate. And I think growing up in high school and college especially, I was someone that was on this treadmill of how do I signal to other people that I am a successful person? And ultimately what that led me to do was put all of my energy and focus into getting into a good school. And when I was in high school, it was getting into a good college. And once I get into a good college, then that I'll be a bit more content and I'll be happier and all of those things. At least that's how I sort of perceived it. And then I got into college and then it became, well, now I'm going to have to set myself up well for a job market. And that will bring me success. And that will bring me sort of that contentment and happiness. And you get there and then it doesn't really feel that way, right? And that's hard because you're kind of promising yourself in your head that once you get to the next step, once you get to the next goal, then you can kind of relax and then you're there. But again, I think success needs to be defined by you and continually rewritten what it means. We are so obsessed with these kind of arbitrary meanings of success that we've just created ourselves, right? Like money and status, especially. That's something I struggle with as a content creator because that metric is also associated to my ability to just create content, right? If I get to a certain higher level of followers, then I can be in a space where I can just strictly make my own YouTube videos. So that's something I kind of struggle with because that's sort of tied to status. And then I'm in this treadmill of create more content that serves the algorithm. And if the content performs well, then I'll get more followers. And once I get more followers, I'll have sort of that snowball momentum effect that I can continue to do the thing and continue to get closer to doing it full time. And I think what I end up doing a lot of the times is I equate the idea of getting to this escape velocity of being able to do this full time to getting more followers. And then ultimately that metric, getting to that next stage doesn't really make me happy. It's just I have a video do well and I'm happy for a little bit. And then the next one doesn't do as well. And then I'm well, now I have to continue to feed the beast and continue to serve the algorithm to continue to do better. Right. When ultimately that's not success, right? What is success for me for this channel is creating content that pushes you to be the best version of yourself. And that's ultimately what I want to do. So redefining your success all the time. Stop being so obsessed with these external things. Okay, that was the first one that I riffed on probably too long, but I don't care. I don't care as much about retention. I'm trying not to care as much about retention because I think ultimately it doesn't serve me as the creator as well to be able to convey the most effective message. That is super meta. I apologize. Okay. The price of fullness of life is costly, an amount most are unwilling to pay. It means doing the hard work of facing the truth about your inner life and relationships and adjusting the lens through which you've been viewing and judging the world. I think this idea of adjusting your lens of how you view the world is so important to really find like more happiness and more contentment in your life, because your reality, your perception of the world is ultimately driven by what you think and how you think. And until you really reach a point, when you really reach a moment where something happens and you decide to react calmly and you decide that your perception of it actually can change that thing, until like you actually do that, I think it's hard to realize that you really do have so much more power over your thoughts and your circumstances because your perception is your reality. We'll stop there. Next one. Most of us have gotten sidetracked by our culture's definition of success and become defined by our feelings and performance, obsessing about what we want but can't control. I think I already kind of nailed the nail in with that one a little bit. So I'll just go to the next one. People who have changed the world, according to Maslow, were able to set their hearts and minds on long-term personal growth rather than external rewards. This enabled them to develop inner strength and carried them through the tough times. Long-term personal growth over everything. Like your success, I think if you don't know how to define your success, I think you should start defining it by what is going to enable me to, in the long run, be the best person I can be, the best person in my relationships, show up the best at my job, show up the best I possibly can through your training, through whatever you may be doing. Like your definition of success should be making yourself better, because that is one thing that obviously you can compare certain things about you to other people, but you can't compare ultimately your success to other people when you're just focused on how am I going to get better. So yeah, long-term personal growth. And then the last one that I want to go through is, unless you have a clear system for training your heart and mind, you'll get caught up in the cultural illusion of success, moving farther and farther from the inner strength and peace that comes with having an undivided heart that reveals your true self. I think having a system around this can be super helpful. And I haven't developed a great one, to be completely honest, but I think trying to come back to what is the purpose behind this decision. Obviously, you can't think that for every single decision that you make, but for the big ones, I think if you can make a conscious decision of what am I ultimately going after and what's ultimately important to me, if you can make a decision that reflects what is important to you rather than what will push you farther and closer to achieving like external material awards, I think that will ultimately serve you better. So I think making a conscious decision to make the decision that's ultimately going to make you happier. I don't love how I said that, but I'm just going to move on. Now I'm going to go through the follow-up questions and activities from this chapter. And I've already sort of thought through these and meditated on them a little bit, ahead of my conversation with my buddy, but I wanted to go through them here. And also, if you want to think through them as I go, pause the video and think through it, or don't. Watch this video however you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do. So the first one is examine your life. Which path are you on? If you find your identity through what you do or what you have, does that give you real peace and fulfillment? If those things or achievements were taken from you, who would you be? I think sort of the path that I'm on right now, it feels pretty natural and it feels pretty authentic to me. But I think if I were to lose this YouTube channel, I think I would have a tough time with it. And if that achievement of all of that time, energy, and effort I put into it was taken from me, I think I'd be a little depressed about it, honestly. But at the same time, I don't think it would totally change like what I was doing and who I am as a person. I think naturally I feel called to motivate and push people. And I think I do that in real life, regardless of if I'm talking about it through my YouTube channel. Like I think I'm motivating a lot of my friends and family members to pursue bigger things and push towards loftier goals, whether that be fitness or whether that be anything else. And I don't think it would really change who I am as a person if I were to lose the YouTube channel, but it would suck. I wouldn't want to lose it, which kind of leads into the second question, which is imagine you're 80 years old looking back at your life. What was most important to you? If you continue to live your life the way you are now, will that be your legacy? What is most important to me right now, and something I'm slightly trying to change because it's too much of an external metric, is my YouTube channel. And more specifically, growing the YouTube channel, I think is the most important thing to me. My friend asked me pretty much that question the other day, and said, like, what are you most focused on, was how he worded it. And I said growing the YouTube channel, because ultimately that is by far my biggest focus. I spend a lot of time training. I spend a lot of time at work and working out and whatever, but ultimately my goal is to do this and do this full time. So, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because I think I ultimately want to do it for the right reasons, but I want to continually to monitor that and make sure that I'm not just doing it to gain this audience so that I can make money, but rather I want to create content that reflects what I'm feeling and that hopefully motivates other people. And whether that be I'm backpacking through Europe, or I'm sitting in a bucket of ice every day, or I'm making Ironman triathlon training videos, like I think it ultimately all ties back to this bigger purpose of, like, how can I push people? And I hate to use the term influencer. I hate to be like, I want to be an influencer, but I want to influence people, and I want to influence people to make decisions that are more in line with what they think and who they are. So, yeah, I don't know. I hope my legacy would be that I made the world a better place because I was in it. Yeah. Okay. Next question. When you've performed your best, what characteristics describe how you were feeling and what you were thinking? I think the best performance I can think of that I've ever had was my last Ironman 70.3. Just to give you some context, if you don't follow along the short form videos, I would imagine that everybody that is still watching this video follows along with the short form content. So leading up to that race, I was pretty nervous about it because the weather was incredibly hot. And when I saw the forecast 10 days out, it was looking like it would be 97 to 98 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 35 or 6 degrees Celsius, I think. And that kind of scared me a lot because when I was in high school, the first cross country race I ever ran, at the end of the race, I collapsed and passed out. And it was a very hot day. But the reason I really collapsed and passed out was because I didn't fuel correctly and I didn't have enough salt or water throughout the day. And I just wasn't super smart about it. But I still always kind of carried that with me. And I still always had this negative perception towards what the heat could do to me. And when I first saw that weather forecast, it was kind of scary, to be honest. But instead of worrying about it, instead of having this negative perception about it, I think one of the principles that I was able to retain from this book, even though I did decide to speed run it, was that you get to control your mindset on anything. And what I decided to do was put as much possible preparation into it as I could, do all of the correct things, fuel correctly, have enough salt, have enough water, have enough carbohydrates, do all of those things right. And as I went through the race, I had this mantra that I would say to myself that went, my body is an elite machine. I can do anything I set my mind to. I am way more capable than I give myself credit for. And I just kept saying it. And as I continued to say it, as I continued to see my family and friends, as I continued to maintain this positive energy, and I really started believing it. And I've started believing it through all of my training more so than that day and in that moment. But I don't know, it was just this moment that was like, I really do believe that I can do anything and that I'm an elite machine, right? Like I just kept saying it and it just happened. So I think when I had that good performance, coming back to the question, I was feeling relentlessly positive, I think is a good way to put it. And I think that's something I try to convey through my content, that I think you should default to positive and you should always try to be as positive as you can. And yeah, I was just thinking good thoughts, thinking that my body is an elite machine. All right. Final takeaway. It's the fourth takeaway. How much freedom do you feel when you're at work or home? What will it take to live and work with total freedom, even in the job you're in now? I think I feel a good amount of freedom currently. Probably a little bit more so at home. I think sometimes when I'm at work, there are certain tasks that I need to accomplish that I'm not as motivated to accomplish, I think sometimes. But I think that's the nature of having any job where you don't work for yourself. And even if you do work for yourself, I'm sure, or I certainly have moments when I'm creating content where I don't feel like fully into it. And sometimes I certainly am trying to serve an algorithm more so than I am focused on making content that I think is the most useful. So I guess I don't feel fully free in either of those, but I would say I'm working towards a more free version of myself every day. And I think that sort of sums up my major takeaway from this chapter, which is every single day, wake up and push towards a more authentic version of yourself and push towards success that is just simply showing up and getting better, rather than success that is defined by somebody else. And if you can do that, I think ultimately you'll be happier. So yeah, that was chapter 1 of Inner Excellence. Those are my major takeaways. I don't know if I'll ever edit this, but if you're seeing it and I'm talking right now, I guess I obviously did. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Love you guys. For real though.